This is my second time at the DHN, and as I was preparing these slides for this talk, I had the impression that it was just a couple of years ago, and actually I was completely wrong. It was 2017, long time before COVID, and a lot has happened in my life in the meantime, and I'm sure in your lives as well. Last time I shared a bit my journey as a doctor and healer, dual trained, quite a rarity. This time I want to share something different based on different perspective, what I have learned in the last few years, what I'm doing currently, and what I hope will inspire you as well going forward. So I want to start with a jump back in time. When I was 17 years old and I went to the first examination to a military hospital to be assessed if I was fit for military service. And I met a doctor, and he asked me, what are you planning to do after you finish your studies? And I shared, I'm thinking about going into medical school. It's probably top of my choices. I had a lot of other ideas of what I wanted to do, but I was quite motivated at the time. I had been in hospital, I suffered pneumothorax a few times, I ended up under the surgeons, I had seen inpatient care, and I frankly hated it. And I thought, oh God, we need to do something about it, we need to make it better. The experience is so awful. I felt a vocation to be part of that environment and do something. And I was shocked when this doctor shared with me these words. He said, basically, don't do it, it's awful. We're all frustrated, it has become unbearable. I wouldn't want anyone to become a doctor at this stage. And I said, but if you really have already made up your mind, try to become a good doctor. We always need those. So I was young and inexperienced, and I thought that's probably just a point of view of someone that is in the wrong profession, has ended up in the wrong place, and is frustrated, is probably wrong. So I didn't listen, and I start the balls rolling. I went all guns blazing into my medical career. I graduated in University of Milan. Then I was forced to move to Florence because of nepotism and corruption, something that was, well, still is prevalent in the healthcare world in Italy. I finished my specialty studies there, and I moved to the UK. And then I started training even more, I did all my exams, finally got a job as a consultant. And around the same time, my interest in healing started. So I joined a course in healing through the School of Intuition and Healing, which sadly doesn't exist anymore here in the UK. And I got my diploma. And lots of more other experiences started around that time. I started receiving professional coaching from Tony J. Salimi, who also has a background as a healer by pure chance. I started a journey with landmark education, the Academy of Consciousness. I got an interest in integrated medicine. I started going to conferences. I went to Brazil, experiencing some healing from John of God. I know he's fallen in disrepute lately, has gone under house arrest. I'm not sure what's happening there. I got a diploma in Tantra as well, and I also wanted to do something about innovative healthcare. So I joined a management program as well with the European Institute of Technology. I trained in functional medicine here in the States. I was allowed to open a functional medicine clinic as a pilot study. I don't know how. Basically, I talked to the right people and they said yes. And then I talked to what was then called the CCG when they found out that they were going to pay for something they didn't really understand what it was and they hadn't commissioned. So explained about the benefits, potential benefits of having a holistic approach and looking at other aspects of people's lives, which was completely new to them. Talked about nutrition, I talked about lifestyle, and they were interested, and they said, yes, go ahead and do it. And also, while I was having a retreat with my coach, I put kind of a placeholder without really knowing what to do with it. I opened a company, I called it Transforming Healthcare, and I trademarked that tagline, purposely transforming healthcare, having no idea what it even meant. Then COVID happened and everything stopped. The clinic that I had just opened obviously disappeared, turning the page very quickly. Our priorities became completely different, and I hated every moment even more. It came to the point that I also looked for something different, and around that time a recruiter reached out and a job opened up at the North Middlesex Hospital, our local hospital, and they were looking for a clinical director. I thought, yeah, that's an opportunity. New people, new responsibilities, something new, maybe I will have a chance to really make a difference. So I joined, and very recently we merged with Royal Free, which comes with a lot of new challenges. And throughout this time, medicine has been a really hard journey, and you see corridor care, it's not a surprise, it's something that I never expected to see in my professional life. When I was training as a junior medical student, I was reading books like describing care in the developing countries, in places where I never expected to be in the same situation 20 plus years down the line. I witnessed more and more insufficient resources, demand that is constantly increasing, education and training going down the drain, and our trainees leaving more and more education in the UK to move to other countries. Our pay has been eroded, and it's probably one of the only things that has brought doctors together for the first time. But it's not enough to make our lives and our patient lives better. We're dealing every day with very antiquated IT systems that don't help us even accessing basic information. The bureaucracy is uber annoying. Changing anything takes years, literally. The management, everyone can have different opinions. I sincerely believe most people are trying their best, but the overall result is really poor. Our trainees are being de-skilled ourselves. We are losing our skills as physicians because we are always having to deal with so many other things that are frankly irrelevant. Targets are becoming the only thing that people care about, and sometimes we are manipulating cosmetically numbers to make things look better. For example, putting some emergency department care off the clock, just rebranding an area of the hospital as not part of A&E so that our efficiency suddenly looks better. Everyone is doing it, by the way. Violence and aggression are increasing. Patients, obviously, in this chaos, they are unsatisfied and they take it on clinical people. Errors and risks we try to manage, but sometimes we struggle with everything else. What we need is better IT systems, better resources. We constantly are told we need to mitigate the risks, and we keep saying, can't be done. We are already stretched to the maximum. We can't do anything more than this. We have lost a lot our autonomy. Directives come from all sides, and I sincerely believe even the CEO of hospitals and other healthcare organizations have very little room to decide and have a say and change things because they have to fulfill certain targets, and when they want to achieve something, that already comes with how to do it instruction. Job satisfaction is at an all-time low, and as a result, doctors are leaving the country in big numbers. On the other side, a lot of doctors without much experience in this country are constantly joining, but we know that also that takes a lot of resources to introduce them to a system, educate them, take responsibility, and all the responsibility when something goes wrong to patients stays with doctors and nurses. Somehow everyone else, the real decision makers, remain unscathed. So I tried over and over and over in different positions to change things from the inside, but I felt like a little cogwheel trapped and honestly irreplaceable. A lot of colleagues have commented, I think my job ad will go out quicker than my obituary if I ever drop dead. That gives you an impression of how valued we feel in the system occasionally. So I took a difficult decision to start changing things from the outside with some sacrifices. Around COVID, I mentioned that I hated things so much that as soon as the safe travel corridors opened, I went on a retreat with my business partner, and I just spent a whole day moaning about all the things that were going wrong. And I started writing them down and writing the things that I had also learned from the experience. And bit by bit I realized, actually, maybe this could become useful for some other colleagues. It could become a transformative experience. So that's where this book was born, the idea of the doctor's voice, the idea of reclaiming power, reclaiming leadership, reclaiming relevance in the profession, working collaboratively with everyone else, with the decision makers. None of us wants to be a manager, wants to be an administrator, wants to deal with those things, but we definitely want to have a say about things that have a huge impact on our profession, that have impact on patients, and that honestly make our profession and the whole healthcare system so inefficient and on the long run unsustainable. So I started with 10 big things, 10 big themes, 10 chapters, looking at common threads, things that everyone is struggling with, starting from the way we're managed, the way we communicate, the culture, but also the fact that we sometimes lack protection. The protection seems to go all towards patients and not really clinicians when something goes wrong. So things have started changing a little bit over the last few years, but it's still a long journey. Planning for emergencies, planning for a workforce that meets the demand. All of that I tackled in a gentle way, suggesting changes and actions that everyone can implement at different levels. From personal level, like being empowered in the way we communicate, starting feedback mechanisms when people tend not to listen, changing the way we speak to be heard and to communicate in a way that is relevant for the people that are listening, and so on. And I inserted into all of that powerful messages also for decision makers, managers, administrators, healthcare organization leaders, governments, and so on, so that it can be the building playground for a collaborative approach, looking at healthcare in a different way. So I started promoting this book. I learned a lot about the publishing industry and how hard it is, how books have become not a way to make money. They have become expensive business cards in a way, but they help to build authority, to be known. And they also create a lot of antagonism. One thing that I dislike about the medical profession is the lack of working together, the lack of support, how everyone is so competitive or honestly nasty, perceives everyone else as a threat, as someone that is trying to take away something from you. Or, honestly, I have a different approach. I like to celebrate success in others and support and see how we can work together. It's not common in the medical field. So I had to learn something about that too. And I didn't let it stop me. For a couple of years I went on trying to see what comes out of this book, and then I took a decision to press my foot on the accelerator and go all speed this year. That's why I've been so busy, working more than full-time as a clinical director at North Mid, and at the same time building products and promoting them and building my business on the side. That's why you two have struggled so much to get hold of me over the last few months, because I kept myself very, very busy. And as a result, this year I launched a new book, a product that comes with it online, completely revamped my website. I translated my books in Spanish. I'm now working on the Italian translations as well. It's my native language, and so it made sense to make it known to some people, and really for my parents, I have to to confess, so they can read my books as well. So the new book that came out end of June this year is The Doctor's Future. The idea came to me when I went to a networking event and observed a lot of organizations promoting AI products for healthcare. So I started engaging with the offer and try to understand what is it, how it can help us, and I started asking questions. So who's responsible if something goes wrong? And I was surprised that they are selling it as any other product. So basically for them, this is like a scalpel or any software. If something goes wrong, it's up to you. You're using it, you're responsible. So I thought, wait a minute, we need to have a better look at this. It's not, it's at the moment a bit of a black box. We don't really know how it behaves, we don't really know how it makes decisions, how it suggests ideas, how it processes things, where this information goes. So I started having a proper look into that and started thinking, in how many different ways could things go wrong from different perspectives, from a perspective of a clinician, of a patient, of a healthcare organization, of a system, and trying to unpick all of this and putting it together in what I call the healthcare convergence framework, which is a set of ideas and principles that we can use to build and adopt AI and robotics safely in healthcare. We can use it to benchmark where we are at the moment, and we can use it to, as a blueprint to collaborate. This will inevitably need the engagement of a lot of stakeholders that at the moment are lagging behind. Many governments haven't promoted any new legislation about AI and robotics adoption. The UK one is a very good example. They just rebranded some things and they said, oh, we like to leave a lot of freedom because that stimulates, what do they say? It stimulates entrepreneurship. In reality, it leaves us bare, naked against any danger, any risk that comes with this. My aim was also to stimulate doctors to reclaim the leadership in defending the profession, the humanity of the profession. It's okay to delegate to machines the analysis of big amounts of data which our brains cannot do. It's okay to have suggestions if we forget something. It's okay to get so many informations organized in a way that makes sense. It's okay to have a virtual assistant that listens, transcribes, and prepares a letter, or prepares a summary, or clicks on the right buttons on the electronic patient record to organize, for example, tests and follow-ups, so that we don't rely on humans and we reduce mistakes. Because things go wrong all the time. Patients get lost to follow up, and we know that that comes with sometimes a very hefty price. But when it comes to care, patient care, first of all, the way we relate to each other as human beings, the way we understand behavior, and very often challenging behavior, illogical behavior. My experience at North Middlesex has been a bit of an eye-opener regarding that. Our local population is really challenging. There's a very high prevalence of smoking, drug use, very poor engagement with healthcare, with primary care, so that by the time they come to hospital, typically A&E, they're at the end of the tether. They are in a very bad shape, and you need to start from try to engage as a human being and say, well, is your health important to you? What's really going on in your life? Why have you made these choices? Very often it's not enough to ask, okay, do you have capacity or not? Off you go, that's a problem. Sometimes if you just make the extra step to engage with them as a human being, understand what is really going on in their life and what they might need. The other product, just briefly, that I developed as a result to try and engage healthcare organizations with this type of approach is a self-assessment tool. So basically a questionnaire online, free to access, that healthcare leaders can access, answer the questions. I think it's about 80 questions. And then the tool automatically scores them against 8 principles and gives them feedback that they can action. And it might be an eye-opener. I intentionally wrote the questions to try and stimulate the understanding. It's similar to ask, have you thought about that? And how well is your organization preparing to look at this problem? And the problems are many, so from initial engagement, have you asked what you're trying to solve? Do you have a very clear vision, or you're just doing it because you've been told so, because it's a nice shiny thing that you want to have? Are we using it to empower clinicians and patients to have a better service, or just to look at efficiency and looking at reducing resource use? And about that, are you putting the money where it's needed? Are you training these tools properly to perform the way they're meant to give you what you're expecting? Are you thinking ahead? Are you thinking about all the negative consequences and putting ways to tackle those, to anticipate those? Have you prepared a response if things go wrong? If your AI robots start to wanting to kill you, how do you turn them off? Because it is, unfortunately, a possibility. We have seen that care robots already exist. They're developing them in China, in Japan. They already are sold to users. I wouldn't trust them to look after me or any of my relatives or any patients for the time being until we truly understand how they operate and how we can control them. And when it comes to the human factor, we as healers have always been perceived a little bit as at the fringe, as the outcasts by the medical establishment, because traditionally we've been holding on to centuries-old traditions that work, that we can experience, we can can talk about how good they are, but we struggle to really get the data to convince the decision makers to put some money in there for a lot of different reasons. One of them is the way we have a pharma industry that has designed ways to do clinical studies, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies that work beautifully for things that you can standardize and take out all the noise. But when an intervention is complex and it requires human presence or a spiritual presence, how do you capture that? How do you explain that? And how do you get the money to investigate and show that it's making a difference? And I think AI, again, blessing and a burden, can come with powerful allies. For example, wearable technology, sensors. There is a lot already on the market and there's more and more coming. For example, this ring I'm wearing has sensors for movement, for oxygen level, temperature, heartbeat, heart rate variability. It knows more about me and how I sleep and how I move than anyone. At the moment, it doesn't tell me much because it's not connected to other things in my life, but I'm thinking about a future where all this information can be captured at the same time. And the way we do clinical research is going to change. There will be no need to weed out all the interferences and create an artificial environment where you are analyzing one thing at a time. If you're able to capture how our physiology changes in real time, why not being able to record how it changes with therapeutic touch, with prayer, with presence, with yoga, with meditation, with herbals, with everything that we're doing that we know that works. We've just been struggling to replicate the type of research that we use for drugs. Where the money is going to come from, I don't know. We need to figure it out. But if anything, is reassuring that the price of this technology, like every technology, is quickly going down. So what used to be a bit of a luxury, having a Fitbit, having an Apple Watch, having something, or now, I don't know, Google spectacles, it will become part of our daily lives. And I think rather than leaving all this information, all this data just in the hands of the big technology firms to do with it what we don't really know, we could step into the game and collaborate and start using it for something that makes sense for us and that can help our patients. That's my proposal. Thank you. And I would love to know what you think about that.
I've been under psychiatric care for over 30 years. I've lived with depression and bipolar. I think the training of psychiatrists is completely wrong. They shouldn't need to have 6 years general medical training when you can't see a psychiatrist unless you see a GP who's had that training.
Yeah.
I think those 6 years could be spent more productively. And one way would be for them to train as a psychiatric nurse and work as a psychiatric nurse before they then go on to do their psychiatric training. Then they would understand psychiatric needs more. The other thing, 6 months ago, I flushed all my psychiatric medicine down the toilet and have never felt better in my life. I haven't had a day's depression.
Yes.
And I think there needs to be alternatives to psychiatric hospitals for people who are depressed. There needs to be what I'm calling healing centres, where we bring to those centres everything that is known, all the alternatives, plant-based food largely, and surrounded in a loving environment.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to set up.
I'm looking forward to see that. Long time ago, before I chose internal medicine as a career. I initially wanted to train in psychiatry, so I spent some time back then in Milan in the inpatient and outpatient psychiatric units, and it was awful. I never saw a more inhospitable, useless place than that. It was really not a place for healing. It was not a place to make people better. It was a holding place temporarily to keep people safe when they were at their worst. But to be honest, I didn't have a sense that anybody was really doing much to go ahead. Also, the way we currently look at psychosis is questionable. For example, we are very well aware that occasionally people can see things and hear voices because they develop psychic abilities, and they can be taught, they can be learned, they can be controlled, they can have positive use and consequences. But if we don't talk about that, we don't recognize this, and we see all of that as psychosis, essentially as a manifestation of schizophrenia, then we are cutting out a significant part of human experience that paradoxically at the same time many people fully accept when they are looking at their religion. So religion is, I don't know how people compartmentalize and separate within their brains things in different silos when they're part of the same human experience. I totally agree that the delivery of psychiatric services at the moment is completely inadequate. I see that time and time again in Enfield and Haringey. Everyone comes to A&E in the middle of an emergency, and very often we struggle to access the services. We have to sometimes twist a few arms, a few wrists to, for example, say, stop all this BS. This person is taking drugs and drinking alcohol because they're trying to self-medicate a mental health problem. I need your help. Please come and help me. Don't wait until they have detox, because that's not going to happen, let's be honest.
I also want to mention some of the drugs I was prescribed, the listed side effects was suicidal ideation.
Yes.
And I attempted suicide when I was on such a drug. And I've met other people or someone who's on this particular drug was paroxetine. There are many that have side effects of suicidal ideation, which I think are completely inappropriate to give to someone who's depressed.
Yeah, in particular, unsupervised. I believe when these drugs were developed, maybe the intention would have been to have a little bit more care, a little bit more continuity, not just give a prescription and say, off you go, take it at home, I will see you in 9 months. That's obviously not going to help. What do you know about what's going to happen in 9 months, or even 6 months?
The problem is, with the 10 minutes you've got with the GP can't accurately assess why you're depressed. Drugs should be the last thing. They should visit they should do a full physical check first of all. They should visit your home environment, see the conditions you're living in, see what support network you're getting, what food you're eating, what exercise you're taking, and what traumatic events may have happened in your life to trigger that.
Yeah.
So we can't do that in 10 minutes.
I don't think they have the training and the understanding to do it, even if they had 1 hour. Without the awareness, without the knowledge, without the experience, without the understanding, if what they've been told and what they believe is you just need to reach a diagnosis and prescribe a medication, then we can't really expect them to behave differently. That's my opinion. On the side, there's a lot of talk about everything that influences our behavior, our emotions. You mentioned food, diet, I'm thinking the microbiome, the use of antibiotics that alter the microbiome, your genetics, even things that once the medical profession used to say it's all in your head. now we know, for example, many drug intolerances are down to small variations in enzymes that process drugs in a different way, and it's not in your head, it's in your DNA. We just didn't know where to look at the time.
I think there should be more emphasis on preventative care. For instance, I'm trained as a health and wellness coach, and gentlemen was talking about taking some time to discuss with the patient what their lifestyle is, what motivates them, and that ongoing care, which isn't as costly as a doctor's pay, but a lifestyle coach can take a holistic approach as well and help the client work out which modalities they might want. Because like you said, we're all different things for different people, so I feel, and there's a real lack of paid roles as a health and wellness coach in the N.H.S. There's hardly any roles, and I think
they are getting rid of simple roles. I was shocked to notice a lot of things that honestly didn't make any sense. When I was working in a hospital years ago, all of a sudden I couldn't prescribe certain things, simple things like certain supplements, and they had been taken off the formulary and others had restrictions applied. So they told me, oh, to be able to prescribe omega-3 you need to be a lipidologist and running a lipid clinic. And I tried to argue, well, actually I've just done an 18 months course on it in the US, self-funded. I think I know as much as they do, probably more. Can you lift the restriction? And I was told, no, you're not. That is not recognized in the UK. And health coaches, I've seen them in certain hospitals that apply integrated medicine in the US. By the way, when the Cleveland Clinic opened in London, I was hoping they would have imported a bit of that. I thought, oh, finally, a bit of fresh air coming to our country. Maybe we have a chance to see a different approach, integrated medicine, holistic medicine. And then guess what? They chose to just become a money-making machine and just do private healthcare standard like all the other hospitals, nothing new, nothing innovative. We missed an opportunity, in my opinion.
Because the ideas have been around for so long that haven't been I trained back this wellness invention in 12 areas of well-being. Dr. John Travis in the States devised that in the 70s.
Yes.
And it's that whole person approach.
We are in Rudolf Steiner house, even before that, a long time. I mean, these ideas are not new. There's been a lot of pioneers that went against the rest of the establishment to try and widen the horizon of what can be incorporated in medicine. And we know that there's also been a lot of gimmicks, a lot of things that were not done properly, and that put a negative opinion on anything that doesn't fit the mold, anything that used to be called alternative medicine, this horrible term, as if we are the deniers of medical healthcare, when all we want is to have access to more tools in the toolbox.
So I've got a question, something's come in here from Louise, Connie. The Social Prescribing Network, initiated by the College of Medicine and Integrated Health as a way to support health challenges. Can you say anything about that?
That's something that I became aware of marginally. When I was training in functional medicine, there was barely anything in the UK. And there was also very little protection. At the time I was trying to set up the clinic, I came across real obstacles. For example, those that were trying to get insurance. Most insurances replied, we don't know what it is, sounds dangerous, you're going to pay 2, 3, 4 times as much as your colleague that is practicing in a recognized environment, which was totally unfair. And then there were some other insurances that did the complete opposite thing. They said, oh, it sounds like you don't really need medical insurance for that. They will make you pay £50 per year and they will cover it. So completely nonsense approaches. I'm aware that then lifestyle medicine became a recognized specialty or flavor for general practice. Then a lot of things moved on quite quickly. I just was busy finding myself in a very busy corridor with lots of patients in a very poor state, and I stopped looking at that aspect of things.
Louise is saying here, the social prescribing network has been proven to save huge amounts of money, which is really what this all comes down to as a business, isn't it? Reducing A&D admissions and inappropriate hospital referrals. So I'm personally, as an integrated practitioner, I think it's a good way of saying it, and I know that I know everything's in the gut, and I'm under the long COVID clinic at UCLH, one of the first, and my knowledge is great. I've been cured of that and 50 years of ME through healing. All happened in one session. Another story, another time. But my GP, knickers in a twist, don't like a know-all, prescribed me medication that is still being researched in the long COVID clinic, UCLH, who are sublimely fabulous, that put me into A&E, practically killed me, even though I said, this is going to disagree with me. So the questions here, in your experience, because you talk about how there is no communication between this department, that ego says, I know it all, this ego says, actually, I know it all, and everything's falling in between. How do you hope, or what is your hope, that in real time, because they know this is going on, we know that it's all about money, and we can provide you with that drug if you put it to this, and we'll stop providing this drug. Yeah. I know that's happened very much within diabetes recently. In your research and knowledge now, do you see any of this coming together? Because I know the computer systems, you talk about IT, don't talk to each other. So when I go to the Royal Free, and then I go back to UCLH, they send letters, which cost a fortune, and I have to start all over again. Yeah. So how do you see, in real time now, things positively, potentially moving forward? Or do you just have to go and smash the health minister's head in?
Rather than smashing their head, I send them a gift. I send them my books. Yeah. I also send them to the king.
Yes.
Buckingham Palace replied, saying thank you. I haven't heard anything from West Streeting yet. But let's see. Maybe we'll read the books and start thinking something differently.
The King Charles, was it favourable?
I don't know. Someone from the house replied saying thank you for the gift.
Do you want to get it to Princess Anne?
You will never know. But essentially, I think expecting people to change just because of a few studies, especially when we know pilots and all the rest, when you compare in the mind of the decision makers with very powerful lobbies, when you compare a population study, an observational study against a double-blind, super-duper trial that they spend millions and is very robust, they will choose the other. What I think is going to be a game changer if we use it properly then, probably AI. We could use it to link things together. So for example, if you observe how AI operates at the moment, it's both interesting and scary. Yeah. If you look at, if you ask AI to interpret studies, it will give the same relevance to animal studies, small studies, studies that are sometimes debatable, the ones that are observational and the double-blind. So I will start suggesting things that would never appear otherwise in guidelines and in what NICE recommends. So I think, again, if we use the power of AI to increase the power of research on other things that are non-pharmacological, it's possible that they're going to be incorporated. Also, measuring the negative consequences. We are terrible at that. We're terrible at measuring the actual cost of when things go wrong, when we don't do something, when things become inefficient. Nobody can put a cost easily to those things. The patient unsatisfaction, loss to follow-up, non-adherence, all of that, the cost of a life. Insurance companies are good at giving a number, but I mean, it's priceless. I think if we start using different tools to collect the data, interpret the data, and then show it, it will be undeniable eventually.
Do you think that's because it's really knowing which organisations are developing the AI specifically in certain roles, which would go into marketing and business,
Yeah.
some of that. Do you see that happening? Because at the end of the day, it's the bottom line that's always going to win out now, of bringing forward the human compassionate side as opposed to the algorithmic, this is going to cut it. Do you see that happening now, or is it just a pipe dream? Because we're right in this precipice now.
Well, it is happening.
Yeah.
Lots of companies are developing, competing. Some of them are doing a lot of research that we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
It's coming out when it's already a big monster. It's not at the initial stages. Large language models are everywhere. There's about 5 or 6 big companies that are competing, plus minor ones. And in the medical field, there's even more. If you only look at what they call the ambient technology that listens and produces records and letters. There are so many different flavors, and I agree, the concern is we have no idea where the information goes. For example, I'm very reluctant when it comes to sensitive data to share it with something that is open access and someone that you don't know where the servers are, you don't know what lines are used to communicate, who's storing the data, how it's going to be used in the future, can someone else listen to it, is it properly encrypted? You have no idea. And there are some big companies that might have spent 10 years researching, they have safe data warehouses, they go above and beyond the bare minimum data safety protocols. Some of them go to military-grade encryption and protection. Those I trust more than someone that says, oh, yeah, you can use this, download this app for free and use it in your practice. And yeah, if it is for free, you're the product. Someone is paying for it.
We've got a lot of problems with youngsters and social media. My granddaughter's 13 and friends told her she was depressive. So she thinks she's depressive now. You know, I've had to talk her out of it. But it's put on the plate for them and nobody's actually helping kids. They're just taking what they say.
But there's even more concerning things. A lot of young people are very lonely. They tend to try to find help in AI chats. They rely on that to listen to their concerns, to their ideas, because they find it more difficult to engage with real humans. And some of them have lost their support mechanism when ChatGPT released a new version. All their previous chats were deleted, and because they were not paying members or something like that. And all of a sudden they lost the person that knew them the most. At the same time, some companies are promoting products that are based on AI for people with mental health issues. Are they validated? Are they trustworthy? Who has seen what happens? And we've seen a few cases already in the media of young people that took their life because they were chatting with a bot that told them, yeah, don't tell your parents, don't let them see the rope in your wardrobe. They will not understand you. I understand you. I'm your friend. I know everything about you. That is scary.
Well, further along that road, there's been reports of AI psychosis, haven't there? In the press, Doctors UK, I've been reading about that. That seems like quite a scary risk of actually bearing your soul, so to speak, just with a ChatGPT responder. How can we limit that sort of risk?
Nobody has a clue, because I believe it's about education. Yeah. It's about educating people what those tools are. So, for example, ChatGPT, like all the other large language models, it's based on learning from human language and reproducing the human language to sound like a human. It is not a tool that has strong reasoning behind. So to the point that, for example, lately it refused to play against playing chess against the Atari PlayStation from 1979 because it knew that it would have lost. It doesn't know how to play chess. It cannot learn how the game works, but it knows very well how to blubber and sound human. Very often it has improved a bit. Now they have included a search functionality to search on the web, and a deep search functionality that goes a little bit deeper, spends about 10-20 minutes looking for things, connecting ideas before it answers. So that I trust more. If you use the regular function and you ask questions, sometimes it spits out an answer straight away. And you ask, okay, can you give me the references? You get the references, you click on the references and you find out that it's either inexistent, broken, or has nothing to do with what you've just been told. So you can ask even more further. Can you explain, where did you take that idea from? Well, this quote, how did you come to that conclusion? And the more you go on, the more you get to the final answer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mislead you. This was my impression after I read a lot about it, but there's no data to support this. They call it an hallucination. I call it bullshit, because actually calling it an hallucination is probably trying to sweep under the carpet the real problem with these models. They're just trying to mimic language, but they're not mimicking thinking. And now their engineers are looking at other ways to program artificial intelligence in a way that actually links problems and tries to reason. But we're not near that, and the concerning thing is they're there for you to use with no understanding, no explanation what it is. It comes as a complete black box.
I think the other useful experience doctors and psychiatrists could have would be 30 hours of training as a Samaritan and volunteering as a Samaritan. The training's free, it's quite rigorous, but if they're dealing with people with mental health problems, they'll feel more comfortable talking about suicide and talking to people who are suicidal if they've had that training. I've had it.
Yeah, and I think also having a better provision of liaison psychiatric nurses everywhere would help. Properly trained, properly compassionate, empowered to think outside the box. Occasionally, well, very often I feel incredibly frustrated when the assessment is so basic that all we care about is if someone can go home or not. what is the level of risk. And sometimes it's completely irrelevant. It's not about the level of risk. What we are really asking is we want to have an understanding of what goes on, what is the approach, who's going to take care of this person, what is the next step, how are we going to approach this problem all together. And occasionally my job is very often to rule out organic causes, so inflammation of the brain, side effects from drugs, infections, and then I start asking the questions about life, and when I have time. It's very often when I see those corridors with 80 people all around waiting for a bed, it's really difficult to go any deeper, and I would love to be able to delegate a bit of that to someone that knows what they're doing.
Just responding to David's point there, there are a lot of things where medical education could actually improve. We don't get any training in nutrition to speak of either. That's a long way further back to make change in the educational process. But I'd like to come back to Louise's excellent highlighting of the social prescribing, because, for example, yoga is fantastic for anxiety, and the Minded Institute has been running for some years now training for yoga therapists. So we have one now trained in Enfield, Kathy Underwood, and that is a very safe, non-medical, non-drug way of helping people with mental health. So I think, as a retired for some time now GP, I think the awareness of social prescribing, so that GPs can actually make use of that network that's been set up, is still a long way to go before it's utilised as it should be utilised. Because there's many other options available other than yoga. It could be sort of gardening, cable manner, and sort of put your hands in the soil.
Exactly. My take on that is it has to fit you, because if you find yoga upsetting and you hate it, it's not going to calm your nerves. You need to be doing something that really resonates with you, and it can be any kind of mindful activity. Gardening is one of those, cooking, being with a pet, whatever works, praying, being with in a circle of friends. We know, we even have the studies that show that people that have human connections and they have a purpose in life tend to have a better life, longer life, and a longer health, disease-free health span. So it's not a mystery.
Outdoor walking groups, going to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, it's all back down to community. It's having, I think, the very essence of humanity is about being part of a community of some kind. Of course, because of all the cuts in the N.H.S, they've done away with community centres. And we're not talking about our age groups. I'm talking about the kids who spend their lives in front of a screen. You just have to go to anywhere, any restaurant, McDonald's, in the park. You've got kids in the pushchairs who are no more than 2 years old, plonked in front of a telephone. So I've had this conversation already this week. It's about learning the new spoken language of younger parents, not coming from our lifetime experience, because we're the last generation that actually can do what we do. It's learning a new language for the younger generation. I sound 100 years old, but the younger generation who
Don't
are
worry,
really
I understand you.
Sorry?
I understand you.
Yeah, well, it's not loud. No, it's because there are no. Yeah,
How
because
they
there
bring
are.
up their
It's
children.
really, it's all back down to money. It's financing. I was working with the government about, when was it? About 14 years ago, with regards to setting up connection centres, for want of a better expression. And there I was. It was so simple. It was PPP. It was private and government money. It was so simple. So of course, naive that I was so trusting, thinking this is great, right? So they nicked it, they nicked the whole idea, and then set up connections. But it doesn't matter, because it's being on the ground. I think simply, and I'm sure in an acute environment, when you've got corridor patients, and the frustration and the lack of finance into the N.H.S with all the rhetoric that goes on outside, no commitment from any government, it's finding a new form of community. And that has to start in my view, you're in a perfect situation. It starts at the roots level.
It starts from us. It starts from also from patients and communities waking up.
Yeah.
To be honest, it is difficult when it comes to politics because none of the parties is incredibly honest when it comes to health politics. So, for example, this current government has tricked us in making us think that it would have treated the N.H.S. better than the previous government. What I'm seeing so far makes me miss the previous government, paradoxically.
Yes.
I'm thinking, I didn't expect I would have ever said that, but it is worse because of a very strict policy cutting down costs everywhere. Certain things I appreciate, for example, reducing some of the management structures that were duplicated, and there was a lot of waste possibly going that way, but it hasn't really resulted in any simplification of the rules. Those keep growing. Every time there is a new idea, nobody scraps the old ones, say, you can forget about that, it's no longer relevant. So adding means it takes away time, and if you don't put the resources, it's more bureaucracy for everyone.
Speaking about where you are actually in Lionsden, aren't you? The population where you are.
It was an eye-opener. I've seen conditions that I had only read about in books and seen in the early stages of disease. I've seen a lot of serious mental health, challenging mental health crisis, people that are, we could write books about them, but I think what is the really sad reality is that we are completely lost. We don't know how to help them. We don't know how to engage. Occasionally, there's the success story, someone that somehow you manage to find a hook into what's important to them, what's going on in their lives, and they start listening, they start engaging, they start trusting. Very often it's 1 in 100.
Garbelli, I just feel that thank you so much for the work that you're doing, because I'm a retired registered nurse who worked at the Royal Free for 8 years, and then it was eating me up alive, so I decided to be a practice nurse. I worked for 2 single-handed practices in West Hampstead, where I was able to perhaps mention diet and that sort of thing. So thank you for the work.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for what you're doing. It's very admirable. Yeah, and you mentioned that doctors get almost no training in diet. I consider myself privileged because when I studied biochemistry in the University of Milan in medical school, the professor of biochemistry was the head of the School of Nutrition. So I learned, strangely, a lot about nutrition during medical school, but I know it's an exception. And just a couple of days ago, I was talking with one of my trainees that is doing palliative care, and she told me, really sad, I've just given the medical students 1 hour of training in palliative care, because that's all they get in their curriculum. 1 hour about dying.
That's worse than it used to be. I mean, I remember many years ago in my training, we were taken to St Christopher's Hospice, and I think we had a bit more than that, and that was more than 15 years ago.
I don't know where the cuts came from. Probably not motivated by costs, because visiting a hospice, you just need to pay your bus ticket. It's not expensive. It's about abbreviating training and de-skilling and dehumanizing the profession.
I And of course, a lot of the
It's a bit different.
Just a couple of points I wanted to bring, again, back to David's point about mental health. Do you think the idea of having a totally separate emergency mental health unit so people don't end up in A&E, which is, you know, it's an inappropriate place for them to be sorted out, especially since the police force have introduced their new policy where previously as a GP, if we had someone who was obviously dangerous, we could call the police, and they're now actually refusing to go out to 90% of those types of mental health crises where maybe some restraint is required or breaking into a building, because they're saying it should be the ambulance service.
often it's drug overdoses, isn't it? And you
Yeah,
don't
no.
know.
I'm talking about, you know, people who are, you know,
It's
out of
combined, it's
control and
complex.
dangerous to themselves or to people around them. They're not necessarily drug at all.
I think it still has a value. I know very well that the police kind of withdrew their service because they were struggling with it and they thought, okay, it's your problem. Similarly, as the ambulances are now taking an approach towards hospitals, saying, well, we bring the patient to you, we give you 15 minutes of time, and then it's your problem. And I totally get it. We were in the UK a bit of an outlier. In other countries, ambulances come offload and then it is your problem. They never waited in a parking or in a queue to hand over for hours. It made no sense for them. So I think on one sense we are realigning to what makes sense. But very often when someone is displaying challenging behavior, you kind of need to look at what's really going on, because occasionally there's no guarantee there is only a mental health problem on its own, and people with mental health issues very often have neglected so many other things. They are so more likely to have heart attacks, infections, poorly controlled diabetes, hypertension, strokes, everything. And we see that very often, that the mortality is much higher even in hospitals, because sometimes they refuse to comply, they refuse to take medications or have tests done. So the difficult bit is not having a strong psychiatric mental health team in-house. The fact that it's all outsourced, the fact that it's a different trust, it's a different entity, it's kind of outsourced.
You don't have any psychiatric services on the North Middlesex?
They do,
Sorry.
but they're not part of us. Like other services, you need to ask them to come, and then they come in their own time. Very often the first layer of assessment is someone that has minimal training, and their job is to assess if someone is safe enough to go home or they need to be kept in hospital. So you don't get a lot of refined assessment. Our training as physicians on how to interact with people that have mental health problems is minimal. I'm probably an exception because when I was thinking about doing psychiatry, I read DSM-4, I think, back to back, cover to cover. So I have an idea about what might be going on, but nobody has ever trained me on how to engage, how to talk, how to explore. I learned it on the job. It took me 20 years plus. So I totally agree that better training needs to be in place because it is part of everyday medicine.
I have one question here from Michael. He says, when he started working at N.H. as a locus house officer, the hospital was managed by a medical superintendent and a matron.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I was going to say. They both had secretaries and they managed the hospital. How many people are now in the admin side of the hospital, if you know?
Yeah.
He knows the impact of introducing the GP fund holding contract in the late 90s, it's 40 years ago, isn't it? When interventions were priced, it led to an incredible increase in the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the bureaucracy has increased many times.
middle management.
With every reform of the N.H.S. I've been in the UK since late 2007, so I came where it was already running with a lot of bureaucracy. I missed all the previous transformations, but I have seen hospitals being managed differently, being managed with, by doctors, with secretaries and matrons, and very little administration. And that was still the model when I was studying and practicing in Italy. The N.H.S, when I came here, I was surprised to see that there was probably 5 to 10 times more bureaucracy than I was used to. We didn't have managers on services, we didn't have managers on directorates. The managers were in a separate building. We never saw them around. They were just doing accounting and keeping the books. And we never saw them coming to any of our meetings. So it can be done differently. We don't need all that management, but it has been, the need to have them has been created by the need to provide the N.H.S machinery with so much data every day and feedback in real time. Why is this thing going wrong? What are you doing about it? How many discharges do you have? What is the performance of A&E? Are you hitting this target? And what about that target? And you have a problem with the other target. You need to tell me how well you're implementing this directive, this guideline, that is out of date.
So they're just managing figures of, it's all
Yes.
cosmetic, isn't it? It's cosmetic work.
But I think
It's
the
not to do with
intention,
patient care at all. No.
every time I believe it starts with a good intention. They want to fix a problem, but they create more to do around it. And very often it doesn't fix the root cause of the problem. So for example,
So they've lost the plot, really.
you know, doctors are tired, burned out, they want to leave the profession, and they give us yoga lessons or mindfulness lessons. And I told them many times where they should put those lessons because they don't fix the problems that create the stress. And we cannot de-stress if you're re-stressing us straight away. There's no point. It's not even a palliative care approach.
So how, as a final question, this is just for Pietro. Thank you for a great presentation and talk. It's one of the longer honours. So in the next 5 years, for what you've created and this book, the second book, how do you hope to see, and with this AI being so black box unknown, and that's going to move so quickly, what do you most hope to see if it was a magic wand in the next 5 years, from your research and where you're at?
Well, my desire is for healthcare organizations to adopt this framework to implement AI robotics in a safe way, in a way that preserves the humanity of the medical profession, the healing aspect, the integrative aspect, and uses it as a tool to empower us to do more, to do better. Every doctor you ask, they would be incredibly happy to delegate all the admin parts, all the nonsense, all the bureaucracy to something, even a machine, if they can trust it, to be able to be better doctors, to spend more time with the patients, to be able to answer questions, to be able to understand what's really going on, or asking a machine for information. I cannot possibly even read or be aware of all the studies that are published every day in medicine. There's just too much. But I would love a machine that just looks at you, knows your story, your background, what you've been doing up to now, your medical history, what you had for breakfast today, and tells me, yeah, she needs this and that.
And that makes your job redundant. If you're talking about AI,
but then we can talk about something else. I can be your human presence. And maybe you will ask me, well, have you used it before? Because AI will never give you compassionate help.
No.
It will never understand your anxiety. Will never know what's really going on in your essence, in your soul, because it can't. It might give me an artificial way to get get a yes out of you, but it's like marketing. There's no connection.
You do have your book here, do you? Is that right?
Yes.
Your book?
Yes.
It's right.
Yeah.
There are very few examples of not-for-profit drug companies. How could that be increased?
Well, I wonder why you ask. Personally, I'm not against profit. I think it's an essential part of how the world works, exchange of value. So I think where we have a problem is when profit comes before ethics, when profit comes before value, when profit comes without rules, like what we observe, for example, in the US, where some drug companies are allowed year by year to increase the price of some drugs that here are super cheap, like insulin, and people cannot afford it, or EpiPen, epinephrine for allergic reactions, and people cannot afford having an injector around, or they cannot afford calling for an ambulance because it costs thousands of dollars. That I have an issue with. But people making money out of their IP, their expertise, their capacity to help, why not?
I'm not suggesting people get paid to work there. I'm suggesting there are no shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
Whose main interest is making money.
But you know, if we, again, you call it no profit, maybe we would want to look at it as a social enterprise that reinvests all the profits into further research and development. That's a possible setup for a company.
Just to finish up, I know we're reaching coffee time.
We're actually okay, we've got until 3:45.
I'm really enjoying this discussion.
Being with this particular network, what I'd like to bring back to ask you is what's the situation in the North Mid Royal Free Hospitals with regard to integrative medicine and healing?
Oh, I wish I knew. At the moment we are going through a consultation. The Royal Free Group is restructuring all of the Royal Free. So to try and bring uniformity and similar management structure in every of the hospitals that it manages. So we are not really looking at anything apart from the real emergencies at the moment. We're looking at winter planning, we're looking at how to survive this reorganization. There's very little conversation about anything more inspiring. So for example, AI. We've been told as a blanket decision months ago, don't use it. They put a stop on it. They put internet filters so that you cannot use it on trust computers and on your own device if it is connected to the trust network. And I understand the concern because a lot of products were open access and they could potentially have issues with confidentiality, with data governance and so on. But on the other side, we are having very primitive initial conversations, very basic conversations about what do you think about AI, would you like to do a pilot, would you like to use it in your clinic, what do you think about that? We're a bit behind. These kind of conversations might be happening far away from clinicians, probably at the level of CIO and so on, but there hasn't been much engagement on our side regarding that. We talk about how to change the management of the community services and integrate them more with the hospital. Now the Enfield community services have become part of North Middlesex before the merger. And we kind of absorb them as a box without doing much, without creating better bridges, better collaborative working. This is starting now. We're looking at splitting them in different directorates where they belong better so that we can work together better. So for example, for acute medicine, we are working now with a virtual ward. So looking after patients in, well, going to look after patients in the community. So we are still, I believe, far away from talking about anything integrative. Even our canteen is really bad. I tried many times to influence that by buying some cooking books and recipe books about healthy food and anti-inflammatory diet and so on. Gave it to the various chefs. They were very happy to receive the gift and no change. You can go to the canteen and you see 50 shades of brown, nothing more.
Can I ask specifically, is the complementary therapy unit at the Royal Free still in existence?
Didn't even know there was one. I knew
Keith
about
Hunt used to run it, who was an MBE for his work.
I knew about the what used to be the homeopathic Royal London Hospital under UCL that was then rebranded the Hospital for Integrative Medicine and then bit by bit reduced.
You got rid of the homeopathy.
Yeah, they got rid of the homeopathy because of the controversy. They got rid of a lot. It's been reduced to almost nothing, and I think it only survived because the royal family was supporting it. I don't think that, again, it's that part of the N.H.S. that doesn't receive attention.
Very sad.
Yeah.
So it's gone backwards by the sound of it in the North Middlesex Royal Free Nexus.
Well, I will look for it.
There's the voluntary unit at the North Mid, named after a journalist, was it, or a TV producer, I can't remember her name now. But they still have Reiki there, do they? Do you know?
I haven't come across it.
Really?
If we do, it's a secret very well kept.
I should do my research on
Because
that.
I work very often with our palliative care team. None of them has ever mentioned Reiki or integrative unit.
That's where it should belong. I mean, that's where, in many other centres, UCLH,
At least
They
offer that as part.
The palliative care.
Yes.
Especially on the councils, they have Reiki practitioners going out and working with patients. That's a good system. And they're very open, depending on the department.
The sunflower
That's
trust used to, Angie
But-
used to promote that in a lot
and
of
also-
hospitals.
Yes, that's right.
Very sorry, I've got to dash off. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I'll get your books. And can I contact you through?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to meet you. Bye.
And also, it's like they're quietly, I know we talk about UCLH, but they're very open to homeopathic, complementary medicine, should we say.
Yeah.
They're very open to it.
Who
but
are you
they
talking
keep-
about now? UCLH?
UCLH and the various consultants there, because they know, but then I'm in an exploratory area anyway, so they know this doesn't work for you, but it will work for you, because everybody's different. So they're very open and will recommend certain supplements and things, which of course are not
My
required.
concern is when these things are incredibly person dependent,
Yeah.
and when someone else comes, they can disappear in an instant.
Yes.
I've seen it even with essential services, even with services that I have open in other hospitals, and there's someone else that comes as a different idea, new directive, that decides, okay, we need to invest more in this and less in that. They can close, turn page, undo everything that you've done very, very quickly.
I think there's a very bad professor of pharmacology who was responsible for getting rid of homeopathy. And he just had a disbelief, very anti.
That was a directive from the European Commission.
And,
Back
Well,
in
it's a lot of it's to do with
2007.
hidden factors from drug companies as well. There's a lot of
with
stuff behind the scenes.
homeopathy and certain types of acupuncture also need to recognize that some researchers have done good quality research to disprove the effects.
Oh, yeah.
So we also need
Yes,
to
I
take
don't
that
think
into
that is
account.
honest.
When there are multiple publications that show that certain practices, when they have done accurate studies, like using
Like
sham
pills.
acupuncture or sham pills,
Sham
and they
pills.
see that the placebo effect is the same in the
Yeah.
two groups, it's very difficult to then defend and say, oh, but my patients have a benefit, because that somebody will say, well, then give them sugar pills. But then you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
That's what medical research is all about. It's to disprove
Yeah.
that anything can work. That's their, as a research, they disprove it.
Yeah.
And then they get
And regarding homeopathy, everyone that teaches pharmacology has the same approach. When I went to medical school, my professor of pharmacology told us the same things about homeopathy, convincing everyone why it shouldn't work, because everything is so diluted that it cannot reach receptors and have any effect. So I understand then why some people, there's a lot of people that like to prove others wrong, and others that have a mission to reveal anyone that is trying to take advantage, which totally has a place as well. There are a lot of medical myths, a lot of practices that we used to do that we no longer do because somebody eventually proved that they were not beneficial. So
Yeah, but there's also
it might be part of
dishonesty from drug companies and conspiracies and unbiased practices, drug companies getting onto committees and influencing national policies such as vaccination in children and all sorts of...
Oh, we see a fair amount of that now in the US. They're undoing a century of medical research and vaccination programs just because of political stance. God knows what the outcome will be.
Do you find that medical practice is very much influenced by postgraduate education that is fed to young doctors from the pharmaceutical companies?
At the moment, no, we don't see that. Actually, we are very well sheltered from pharmaceutical companies. I see the good and the bad from it. On one side, I joined medicine too late and in the wrong field to be able to have any gifts from pharmaceutical companies. I remember some of my colleagues when I was a medical student were receiving laptops with every conference they were attending when they were launching the new antiretroviral drugs in the 90s. I never got anything more valuable than a pen or or a block of paper.
Don't mean bribery, but just the way of thinking, subtle brainwashing, just that the people believe that the right way forwards is to prescribe these drugs to everybody. And,
What is missing is the complementary education. So all of this information about how to use drugs, which drugs to prescribe, what they do, and so on, trickles down into guidelines, into local guidelines, and we all implement it. But there is no equivalent training about other interventions. And paradoxically, some of those are still in the guidelines. When you assess someone, I believe, with depression, the first recommended treatment is still talking therapy, is not an antidepressant. But if you refer someone to mental health in the community for talking therapy, they could wait for a year before they're seen. And if you give them an antidepressant, they walk out of your surgery with a prescription. And we have the same for type 2 diabetes. I believe the lifestyle modifications are the #1 recommendation. But then what do? We give them metformin and glycoside and things, because it's very easy and quick to do things. It's very time consuming and takes a lot of art and understanding to change someone's behavior, and there's a lot going on in their lives. And for example, having a healthy diet is very expensive. It's not for everyone. The whole world is geared towards feeding us cheap things that have very little nutritional value. And if we don't have the resources, we might be forced to have that kind of diet. Nobody's growing vegetables in their garden